Okay, a bigger picture here. We bring in Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management. Welcome, Matthew. Look, we've had a pretty resilient market, but at the same time, August has been under some pressure, and now you're getting in some stronger than expected prints, like the ISM services number. Things just in the beginning of August, it seemed light. Now we're starting to feel like things are picking up again. What's the forecast here?
Well, thanks for having me back on again. I don't know if 2023 is going to be termed the it depends market year, but it sure does seem that way, doesn't it? Like everything is so interconnected and everything seems to be so data dependent and everything seems to be dependent upon each other. The banking crisis that we've seen earlier in the year was really a result of what the Federal Reserve did. The big question right now is, what is the Fed going to do in the future? What are they going to do, like you said, just in 25 days? Is it going to be something where we're going to see, rates being hiked? When we look at the market, I have to say I'm nothing short of impressed because the market and the economy has stayed extremely resilient. But at the same time, that good news is really bad news because we know that the Federal Reserve is really looking for weakness. And we're starting to see some things that are developing on the horizon that I think could lead to, that recessionary cliff that we're all kind of worried about. We're seeing the slowdown in the German economy. We're seeing the slowdown in the Chinese economy. And we know that to some extent, even though they may be quite small, they have an impact on our economy. So when I see these stronger prints and then yet I can look in a different corner of the economy and I see weakness, it really doesn't surprise me much because we know that everyone is really looking at what's going to happen over the course of the next 4 months.
What if the Fed hikes again in September? I know the Fed funds futures are showing that it's not likely, but at the same time, do you think they may?
I really do. I think that the Federal Reserve has felt like they were kind of the whipping boy in the sense that, they were blamed for not acting soon enough. And now they're taking the approach to say, well, we're not going to be really accused of not going far enough. And I think at this point, they need to stop. That's been my sentiment for about the last 2 to 3 months, that they need to just take a bit of a vacation and let things kind of see where they're going to settle out. But I'm not so sure. There's so much of a 50-50 here. We can look at one piece of data that suggests to us, okay, they can go ahead and hold from here. Yes, rates may stay high for a longer period of time before we see cuts. But then you look at other areas of the economy and you're saying, gosh, it looks as though they really do have the justification if they're going to raise hikes or raise the rates another 25 basis points.
Meantime, the Fed's Beige Book says some Fed districts saw consumers exhausting savings and turning to debt. That is problematic. And I think that's part of the discussion is the consumer. They are digging into savings. They are using credit cards. They are even claiming hardship and going to those 401ks. So if the Fed hikes again, are you concerned about a recession?
I absolutely am concerned about a recession. When we look, I saw earlier this week that there was a report that was saying that there was, I believe it was from Macy's, and they're showing more delinquency rates. Well, the reality is that when interest rates go up, we know that if the average American family is digging deeper into their pocket and they're starting to use a credit card, that is a never-ending death spiral at that point, because look at what the interest rates have done within just the credit industry alone, just the credit cards alone. And so it is a big concern of mine that this is the reason why the Federal Reserve needs to halt. If they continue to increase these interest rates, we're going to see further contraction, and that's not a good thing for the stock market.
Most of the districts that respond for the Fed Beige Book had seen growth, but there was a slowdown in retail spending. So we're seeing pockets of strength and pockets of weakness, and I guess that's part of the issue. As oil's running up, then you face inflation at the gasoline pump. But I did want to get to what's going on in the transportation industry and the auto industry in particular, UAW. There are some people who surmise that they will come to an agreement at the the 19th hour or whatever, so as not to disrupt Ford, General Motors, and, Stellantis. And so this is the issue. What do you think is happening here?
Well, it's pretty interesting. First and foremost, I think that the union is really feeling as though they're in a position of control. They think that they have the ability of now demanding, and the automotive industry is going to have to relent. I think it's a fool's errand at this point. I don't really know if the head of the union is just trying to make a name for himself, but he seems awfully demanding, and he seems to think that there's zero negotiation. Basically, they're going to have to agree to all the various terms and conditions. We need to remember that the auto industry has gone broke before. And when we've got more and more of a shift, we've got more and more of an emphasis towards electric vehicles, which we know have smaller profit margins in many respects. I think the auto industry is being pretty honest by coming back and saying, listen, we'd love to do a little bit more, but you know what, we've only got so much to go around, and we still have to make a profit, otherwise we're going to go out of business. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, but I think that there's a lot of even union workers right now that are kind of shaking their head going, what is this guy doing? He's just taking an absolute no conceding approach, and I think that that's a really, really scary, dangerous thing to do right now.
Well, that does not mean that they settle so fast. I mean, that means some pain ahead. Is that right?
Absolutely. So we want to be looking for, as an investor right now, you know, we know that there's going to be some problems with some of the unions. We look at, you know, the entertainment industry, and we know how much of the actual economy and the GDP that makes up. We're concerned about that. It doesn't mean that those people don't deserve pay raises, because they haven't gotten it for a while. We look at the automotive industry, but we are seeing an interesting shift where there's more and more concentration of spending on the service industry, on the technology industry. And here's the part that I hate to even admit, but we have to. Companies are going to eventually come to a position, I believe, Nicole, where they're going to start adopting artificial intelligence and technology instead of human beings, because, well, let's face it, the human being, they're going to go on strike when technology really won't. And that's the part that we don't really want to see. Yes, I'm all for efficiencies, and I want to see companies be able to improve in that respect. But we also have to be very careful not to replace ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you said if the Fed is not careful, it could break something, right? I mean, that's sort of the phrase that everybody's talking about. Okay. Well, it's great to see you, Matthew Johnson, President, Owner, Johnson Wealth and Income Management. Thank you.